The sky called him to Islam, a pilot's miraculous journey. The engines of the Boeing 787 Dreamliner roared across the velvet sky of Istanbul as Captain Adam Walker gently pulled the yoke, his eyes fixed on the endless blanket of clouds. It was supposed to be just another flight from London to Jakarta. Nothing unusual, nothing out of the ordinary. Adam was a senior British pilot, a man of principles, precision, and professionalism. The cockpit was his kingdom, the clouds his companions, and logic his only compass. Faith had long since faded from his life, pushed away by the rigorous discipline of aviation science and his bitter experiences with religious hypocrisy in his youth. He believed in nothing except what he could see, touch, and fly. But the skies that night had something else planned, something that would crash through the winds of certainty and leave him trembling, not from turbulence, but from truth. As he approached Syrian airspace, the radar began to act strangely. The co-pilot, a young and inexperienced flyer named Darren, tapped the screen nervously. "Sir, I'm getting strange signals. Could be interference," Adam muttered, adjusting the radio frequency. But then the lights flickered. The control panel glitched. The autopilot disengaged. Before Adam could respond, the aircraft violently jolted downward. A scream erupted from the cabin behind, followed by chaos over the radio. "Mayday, mayday," Darren shouted. Adam's hands gripped the yoke. His eyes scanned the altimeter. They were descending fast. His heart pounded with terror, a sensation unfamiliar to the man who had once flown through war zones and cyclones. But this was different. Outside, a strange fog swallowed the aircraft. They were plunging straight into a stretch of desert near Aleppo. As the engine struggled, Adam saw something that chilled his soul. A shadowy figure standing on a mountain peak below, arms stretched to the sky. What was it? Just before impact, something miraculous happened. The engines restarted. No explanation, no logic. They soared upward, narrowly missing the earth. It was impossible. No pilot could make sense of it. But Adam's hands moved as if guided by another force. His mind blank. His heart stunned. The rest of the flight proceeded in eerie silence. No one on the flight could explain what had happened. Once landed safely in Jakarta, Adam didn't rest. The image of the shadowed figure haunted him. Every time he blinked, it returned. And so did the nightmares. He would see the same mountain, the same fog. But this time he stood there looking up. A voice called to him in a language he didn't know but could feel, a voice that echoed in his very bones. He began searching, not in the books of science, but in something he had never turned to, religion. But none of his past religions had answers. Christianity felt hollow. Buddhism, too passive. Hinduism, too foreign. Then, one night, driven by desperation, he sat in a Jakarta cafe scrolling through videos. One thumbnail caught his eye, the miracles of the Quran in the skies. He clicked, and as the video played, he froze. It showed a documentary about signs in the clouds, the preservation of birds in flight mentioned in the Quran, and one particular verse stunned him. Do they not see the birds above them, spreading their wings and folding them in? None holds them aloft except the most merciful. Indeed, he is of all things seeing. Surah Al-Mulk 67:19. He trembled. He rewound the video, played it again. He felt as though someone had taken that verse and planted it deep within his chest. He whispered the words, and tears rolled down his face. He hadn't cried in decades. That night, he met Yusuf, a local airport engineer and a devout Muslim. Adam asked him, "Is this real? Does your Quran really say this?" Yusuf smiled gently. "Brother, the Quran is not poetry. It is truth." They talked for hours. For the first time, Adam didn't feel judged. He didn't feel talked down to. He felt invited, as if Allah himself was calling him. Still, he wasn't ready. But the signs weren't done with him. On his return flight, he was scheduled to fly over Syria again. Despite his request to avoid that route, fate, or something greater, ensured he passed the same airspace. And again, the fog came. Again, the controls failed. This time, the aircraft went black. No engine, no lights, no communication. Passengers screamed. The plane was plummeting. Darren wept. Adam's hands trembled. And then he heard it. A voice. Not external. Not over the radio. But inside his soul. Say, "There is no power and no strength except with Allah." He didn't know what it meant. But he heard it again. So he whispered, "La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah." He didn't even know the meaning. But the moment the words escaped his lips, the engines roared back to life. The aircraft soared once more. Darren looked at him in disbelief. "What did you say?" Adam, pale and shaking, replied, "I don't know. I just repeated what I heard in my heart." That night, Adam didn't sleep. He searched the phrase. When he read its meaning, "There is no power and no strength except with Allah," he broke down. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't some mind trick. This was divine. He called Yusuf, and before far, they drove to a quiet masjid on the outskirts of Jakarta. The muezzin was calling the adhan. The words pierced through Adam's chest like light, breaking through darkness. "Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar." He wept. With trembling lips and heart bursting, he uttered the shahada. "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah." And at that moment, Captain Adawakar died, and Abdullah was born. He changed his name that day, not for formality, but because he knew he now belonged to Allah. He was his slave, and this was the greatest honor. But the story didn't end there. 6 months later, Abdullah went on Umrah. Standing in front of the Kaaba, he prayed with a heart full of submission. While in Mecca, he met a blind old man who placed a hand on his chest and said in Arabic, "You were saved twice by the angels who lifted your aircraft, but it was your heart that brought you here. Allah guides whom he wills." Abdullah had never met him. No translator, but he understood, word for word. Miracle. From that day, Abdullah began delivering talks across the globe, not as a preacher, but as a man who once challenged the skies and found Allah above them. He would end every talk with one story. "I once saw a shadow on a mountain before my plane crashed. I now believe that wasn't a shadow. It was an angel waiting not to take my life, but to guide my soul. And when I said la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, I didn't just save a plane. I saved a heart." He would smile. "And now I fly, not with metal wings, but with the wings of faith." Years passed. Abdullah was no longer a commercial pilot. He lived humbly in Medina, near Masjid and Nabawi. He would wake up before far and whisper, "Bismillah," before every step. People came to him. Some were atheists, some Christians, some scientists. He would listen, never argue. And when they asked him how he knew Islam was true, he'd simply say, "I was once suspended in the sky, between death and life, and I called out without knowing I was calling upon Al-Hayy, Al-Qayyum. He heard me. He saved me. And now, I live for him alone." On a cool Ramadan night, while in sujud, Abdullah returned to his Lord, forehead pressed to the earth, whispering the same phrase that once saved his soul. "La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah." And indeed, there is no power and no strength except with Allah. If this story touched your heart, don't let the moment pass. Say La ilaha illallah and begin your journey to Allah today. Subscribe to Deen in Minute for more real stories of faith, miracles, and guidance. Deen in Minute.